We're going to look at how to work with gradients. So I'm going to start a brand new document, always changing it to inches. And let's see, CMYK, there we go. So let's start by playing with a basic shape. So I'm going to take, let's do a square or a cube. There we go. So I'm going to fill this with a basic color. So we know that if we choose a specific color, it's going to go solid. So this is set for solid. I'm going to then click on gradient. And when I click the gradient tab, there's 3 different kinds of gradients that we can work with. One would be the linear gradient, and that goes from one side to the other or up to down, where the information kind of gradually changes from one color to another, or as many colors as you'd like to have, honestly. By grabbing one of the anchors, I'm grabbing this green one here, I can move the direction of that linear gradient. Let's see how I just kind of flipped it over, right? I can make it go more green over there, more blue over here. I can show less green and more blue, vice versa. The little line in between is a slider that kind of controls, again, how much of the blend we're seeing between those 2 colors. So for every set of colors, there is a slider that will adapt and change the blending between those 2 flavors, okay? I can add more stops. This little circle here is considered a stop, and this is a color stop over here. If I wanted to add more stops, I click anywhere along the line and it duplicates whatever flavor is currently happening at that point, and then I can begin to change either the value of that stop or a blatant color change at that stop. All right, and again, I can go back and I can move the transition from this light green, yellow green to the lighter green. I can change the transition here between the lime green and the blue green. So I still have control over how much of the blends are happening. I could click and add another stop here if I want, and I could then also adapt or change the kind of blue that's there. Okay, getting the drift? Yeah. All right, so if you don't like a stop, you can drag and yank it away, or you can click on it and choose its little trash can. Easy peasy, right? Okay. Second kind of gradient, the one in the middle, is the radial gradient. This works with circular functions, right? Radial. So in this, you now see the diameter markings on this, and if I click on the white dot and drag it, it will distort or change to something more of an ellipse as opposed to a perfect circle with the glow. So some people might have a different need for a different kind of spherical outcome. Okay. Again, I can grab any one of the little stops and I can move this radial kind of approach to anywhere on the page that I want the initial center to be. So let's change some color here. I'm going to tap on that one. Let's go with something significantly lighter. Let's go up. There we go. And then I'm going to take this guy and let's make him really rich. Wow. All right, there we go. So we have a definite light to dark kind of a gradient going on, almost like there's an illumination. And again, that illumination can stretch further and have less dark. So it's totally up to you how you want to play this out. Again, you could play with, bright colors to something more muted and dark, looky there, or I could come over here. So I could play out a variety of gradients just on a specific object. So again, this one is your radial one, and again, this can go anywhere you want it to. It could be shorter. Look at that. Have just sort of a glow, right, as opposed to something that is happening over the entire thing. Okay, that's your radial. Last one. This is considered your free form gradient. There's no line to it, there's no circle to it. Free form basically means you can put down anchor points or spots of color, stops of color, and you can change their color anywhere. So let's start with a little bit of a, let's go for a, come on, let's go for a reddish color. Okay, so I have a red color happening up here, right? I'm going to pull on this white, so just like it did in the radial one, it can expand the spread of the spraying of this color. Kind of think of an airbrush spraying out whoosh, of color, or a spray can. How far do you want that spray to go? And it's going in a radial spray. Okay, so I could click over here on this stop, and maybe I can put let's go with something a little bit more hotsy-totsy, right? Let's kind of come over here, like that. I can move that in. I could, let's see, anywhere you click is going to add another dot, right? So I can change how little or how much of this I want. Maybe I want the same thing I had over here before. Ooh, now we're bringing in some other stuff. All right, maybe I'm going to click over here, and I'm going to end up coming over and having more pinks and reds. I want more red to take over. I can move dots around. Want my illumination to be over here. So I can like basically create a morphing, almost even like think of a tie-dye, I guess, in some way. See, look how I just added a whole nother color to the mix. I could keep adding, and every time I add, it's going to keep doing the color I had before. Okay. Some people will create sort of a sky with this, if you want to create sort of the feeling of a sunset. So I could come up here and go, okay, let's move some of these dots around. Let's say we had some here that are more yellowish, right? Something more in the yellow family. Something over here in the yellow, see? Maybe we have, let's see, let's start with some lighter colors. We want something lighter down here. So you could play with, anything that is an organic shape, sometimes animals, sunsets, things like that you can kind of change your colors where you don't need to have something lined up perfectly in a specific organized way, such as a pure circle or a pure linear gradient. This allows you to have a little bit more freedom, almost like a tie-dye wash of how things are going to look. All right, on something that has a possible form to it, let's look at a circle, right? Say I want to make this look like a sphere and not necessarily something that is just a flat shape. This is when you want to pick and choose the kind of gradient that's going to work best for your object. So right now, if I'm going to go with something spherical, I would choose the radial, right? If light is coming from one side of my sphere to the other, I can align this up, and now this looks like a ball that has light coming from up here, right? Oops, let me change that to a stroke line instead. Change that to that. Come on. No outline. Oh, for heaven's sakes. Always because I'm showing something, right? Anyway, so I'm pointing, say this is my light source up here shining down on this object, okay? Then in that sense, then I'm going to have a shadow somewhere off to the right-hand side. So for me to draw a shadow, I'm going to come over here and I'm going to draw a black shape without an outline on it. All right, I'm going to draw an oval. Whoop, let me give myself an oval here. Come back. There we go. I'm going to draw myself an oval, right? I'm going to move that oval Oh, it's on top. Oh dear. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to remove my stacking order. I'm going to drag down, and now it's behind there. Look at that. See how it went behind it now? Okay. And I can change my gradient on this object to reflect the idea that the shadow itself is going to get lighter toward the end. So I'm going to come up here and we're going to do a gradient that's a linear gradient. Look at that. So I can create a gradient that makes it look like it's darker underneath my sphere and lighter as it starts to fade away from my sphere, right? And now I have myself something that reflects the idea of light coming from the upper left and then the cast shadow that's happening down below on the lower right. How did I do that? Two circles or spherical objects were drawn, and I placed a radial gradient on one and a linear gradient on the other.